Hello. So, we're going to do a bonus stream today. Not a super secret stream because we're going to continue on from yesterday. We're going to begin with a little bit of fun. No music today. We're just going to go straight into it. And that's not straight into it. Hold on. There we go. Ooh, I forgot my headset. I'm not going to look for it. Instead, I'm just going to use the one that I got here, my headphones. My headphones. Are they charging? Is it in? Is it not? I just realized I might have it not plugged in. Am I charging this or not? There's a chance I didn't actually charge. Oh, it doesn't matter. Who cares? Let's see. Okay, yeah, it was charging. All right, let's do this. Oh, bam. Okay. Hello. Okay. I want to start off with this one, and then we'll get into everything else. Bam. Quiet, quiet. There we go. Hope everybody's having a good night. I'm probably going to film a new channel opening in a few days. Wait, let's do this.
Not the West. Texas isn't Southwest. Texas is Texas. Long debated and often discussed, Big Texas and its place in America's regions is always a source of contention. The U.S. Census Bureau has designated Texas as a part of the southern region of the country. But oftentimes, if you ask someone from Texas if they're southern or not, they'll tell you, I'm not southern, I'm Texan. Or if you ask Americans from other parts of the country, you'll get a million different answers and reasons for why it is or it isn't. So what makes Texas different from other southern states? Well, in this video, I'm going to explain 9 reasons why. Go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe if you love this.
I hope you're a Texan.
And let's talk about Texas. The first and most obvious reason is the geography and sheer size of Texas. If you look at the
This isn't really even how big Texas really is, because Texas used to include other areas. So
other southern states, they're kind of in the middle as far as land area.
we used to go all the way up here.
Larger than northeastern states, but smaller than western states. But Texas is different. It is not only larger than every.
So Texas actually used to go up to here and like that. So they got rid of parts of Texas.
Other southern state, putting it more in line with the western states. But it's also the second largest state in the entire country. At almost 269,000 square miles, it leapfrogs all of the western continental states and is only dwarfed by the gigantic state of Alaska. Texas is so large that it's bigger than the next 4 largest southern states combined. If Texas were its own country, it would be the 39th largest country in the world. To give you another idea of how large Texas is, on the U.S. interstate highway system, the exits are usually numbered by miles from west to east and from south to north. Texas is the only state in the union where you'll see exit numbers that reach over 600. When you enter the state along I-20, you will see exit 35 for Wasco. And along I-10, there will be exit 878 for Orange. Yes, that means that you have to drive 878 miles before you're out of Texas to reach the next state, which is New Mexico. In fact, El Paso, Texas is closer to San Diego, California, than it is to Houston, Texas. Up next is the landscape. The majority of the South consists of either coastal plains, beaches, mountains, or Piedmont areas. The Atlantic coastal states have low-lying areas adjacent to the Atlantic Ocean that eventually give rise to the Piedmont and the Appalachian Mountains, while the Gulf states are characterized by low-lying plains along the coast.
I was hoping there was going to be more fun.
As you head north. The other result, you can find plateaus, desert valleys. But the thing of note is that the largest group is those of Hispanic descent, at just over 40%.
Okay, here we go. That could be interesting.
South, especially, are all quite similar with this breakdown. But when it comes to Texas, things look quite different. In Texas, no one group makes up a majority of the population at 51% or higher. But the thing of note is that the largest group is those of Hispanic descent. At just over 40%, they have overtaken non-Hispanic whites as the largest demographic in the state. In third place is Black Americans at around 13%, followed by Asians at 6%. Texas also contains the only large metro in the United States that has a population that is a majority Hispanic, as San Antonio is the 24th largest in the country.
Rio Grande Valley. Rio Grande Valley. You should be talking about the Rio Grande Valley. You might not be a Texan.
And Hispanic Americans are 54.3% of the population. You can see this influence all over the state, as it's not uncommon to hear Spanish
The Corco.
spoken at any given time in any given place. This can also be somewhat regional as well, as the areas close to the Mexican border tend to have.
I live here. This is where I live. Technically, I live right there. Yeah. So, majority Hispanic area. And we are one community. A lot of people don't know this, but this area right here, this, that, and that is called the Rio Grande Valley. We are one community. We're not multiple communities. And our cities have sister cities on the other side of the border. So, what happens is that people who live on this side go to school over here. That's right. People who live in Mexico go to school in America. And people who work on the American side go to work in Mexico, in what we call the Micligadores. So Kingwood Audio, that's on this side, that's on the Mexican side of the border, and then the people who live there or work there live on this side of the border. A lot of the big acting studios that film on this side, the actors live on this side. So that's just something to let you know. Woohoo.
Have higher Hispanic populations. The Rio Grande Valley and El Paso areas are of particular note in that the Hispanic populations in these areas can reach 80 to 90%, while over in Houston things are split mostly evenly between the three groups. And the Dallas-Fort Worth area is slightly different with a 42-16, 29% split among those groups. This map of the counties gives you a good idea of the demographic distribution across the state, with Hispanics dominating the southern and southwestern parts of the state, and non-Hispanic whites making up the rest. In most other southern states, aside from Florida, the demographic makeup is usually around 60% white, 20 to 30% black, and 10% or less Hispanic. And those demographics play a role in the next reason Texas is different, and that is some of the food. First is the barbecue. The Carolinas and Tennessee are the face of what is Southern barbecue, but Texas, of course, has its own barbecue. With Southern barbecue from the Carolinas and Memphis, pork is the primary meat. It consists of pork shoulders and baby back ribs. It is served pulled, shredded, or chopped, but sometimes sliced. It may also be rubbed with the spice mixture before smoking and mocked with a spice and vinegar liquid during smoking. There can be more regional differences between eastern and central North Carolina, as well as South Carolina, but that's the general style. While Texas barbecue uses beef as the primary meat, and beef briskets and beef ribs are the primary dishes. Texas barbecue is cooked until it is falling off the bone and uses a sweet tomato-based sauce. What you can also find in Texas that isn't found in any other southern state is authentic Tex-Mex food. Well, like the name says, Tex-Mex is a type of Mexican food from Texas. Though it can be considered foreign food, it was in fact born right here in Texas. So one could say that Tex-Mex is American Mexican food. And according to Twisted Taco, this term used to describe them at home with the food that they had access to, such as beef and flour. The Mexican restaurants in Texas started adding more ingredients preferred by Texans to accommodate their taste, resulting in what we call today Tex-Mex. Examples of Tex-Mex food include fajitas, nachos, and any dish that uses beef,
Agreed.
beans, canned vegetables, wheat flour, or yellow cheese. These ingredients are not.
And our nacho plates are not like 4 or 5 nachos. Our nacho plates look like platters everywhere else.
Popular south of the Rio Grande or the Mexican border. And this means that Tex-Mex food is available in numerous places. And as the name states, it is a Texan thing, not a Southern thing. So
Correct.
Texas has Tex-Mex, while the rest of the South has their traditional hearty food that the region is known for. Though in modern times one can find both types of cities and states, things can get quite expensive. Add up and you start looking for things to cut back on. Well, that's why I'm at 50. I can even technology ship to excellent and some of the widest surface boulevards you'll find in America. While around the rest of the South, seeing a large stack interchange might be a big deal, in Texas, it's just the norm. Spaghetti Junction in Atlanta, Texas has like 10 of those. I-95 in Miami would be just another road in Texas. Florida is also quite proud of its I-4 ultimate ways in power. In Texas, it gets its ways.
No, 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 no. We're not doing that. Bastards.
Some would debate its status as a southern state as well. Then, aside from that, Texas is also the king of concrete roadways. Concrete roadways are unique to Texas, as you can occasionally find concrete used on freeways in other southern states. But in Texas, even the surface streets in the cities are paved with concrete. One of the first things I noticed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area was how much concrete was used all over the area on regular arterial roads. Now on to the city come to mind. Many regard Atlanta as the unfast other southern metro, largest in the country, with 8 million, predicting that they may. Tampa, Charlotte, Orlando, Texas South ends at the Texas state line. Capital of the South, except Texas. Now the next thing that's different about Texas is the history. While most other southern states went from colonies of foreign countries or U.S. territories prior to becoming a state, Texas actually had a period of being its own country. After the Mexican War of
Yeah.
Independence against Spain,
Yeah. Yeah. That's Texas. We coming back for you, Albuquerque.
Texas was included in the newly independent United Mexican States of America. In
Hmm. We were also part of Mexico for a very long time. So when older Mexican families talk about how we never moved, we basically they moved the borderline, but the families who were here were already here. So we really immigrant. We just you moved the border on us.
an effort to populate the area, the Mexican government encouraged immigration from other countries, as well as migration from other parts of Mexico. So many Americans came to the territory to the point that in 1830, the Mexican government banned immigration from the United States. Though significant illegal immigration from the United States continued to occur. By 1836, Texas delegates had decided to break away from Mexico and declared the independence of a new Republic of Texas. The U.S. recognized the Republic of Texas in 1837, though clashes with Mexico continued through the 1840s. On the other end, Mexico refused to acknowledge its independence, nor did it entertain U.S. offers to buy Texas. It had its own constitution, its own presidents, and even had formal relations with some foreign countries. However, in 1845, the U.S. annexed Texas and admitted it to the Union, thus ending the 9-year-old Republic of Texas and angering Mexico, giving way to the Mexican-American War, and the rest is history. No other southern state came into the Union after being its own country. Next on the list is the split loyalties as far as what region Texas does belong to. Depending on where you are in Texas,
This is very correct.
it could be considered as part of the West, the South, the Great Plains, northern Mexico, western Oklahoma, and New California.
Or just the deep south.
The southern part of Texas roughly follows Interstate 45 between Houston and Dallas, with Houston no doubt being considered southern, while things get a little interesting up in the DFW. East of Dallas, most will say, is southern, while Dallas and points north can be claimed as the Great Plains. The area around the Oklahoma state line is already referred to as Texoma, and Dallas has already set its sights on this region as future territory for unlimited DFW sprawl. While still in the DFW on the western side, the city of Fort Worth is where many say the West begins. West Texas then stretches all the way down the I-20 corridor through the oil fields of Odessa and Midland and on to El Paso. Now it can be debated whether Fort Worth or El Paso is the center of West Texas, but I'd go with Fort Worth. Over the Panhandle, you'll find West Oklahoma, which is centered around Amarillo. I've driven through this area on both I-40 and US 87, and it definitely looks more like Oklahoma than the rest of Texas. This area here, to include Corpus Christi, San Antonio, and the Rio Grande Valley, is northern Mexico. Out here, the population is significantly more Hispanic than other parts of the state, and San Antonio is no doubt the most dominant city here. And finally, there is the capital region around Austin. It is said that the capital city of Austin is the least Texas city in Texas.
Very
It
true.
is also the most popular area of the state for relocated folks from California. In Austin, you will find an incredibly fast-growing skyline, the flagship University of Texas at Austin, more walkability than other Texas cities, but also the worst traffic of all the Texas cities, all in one place. While in the rest of the South, for the most part, the states can more easily be fit into a single region. Though many will have something to say is Texas state pride. Now, this is not to say that people in other states don't show pride in them, but Texas is on a different level. The Lone Star has long been a symbol of Texas pride since before.
Hold on, Lisa. I didn't mean to be ignoring you. I don't have my chat up. I didn't actually think anyone was going to watch this one. Hold on. Let me open it up. Let me open up my chat. Sorry about that. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. This stream was literally just for me. Hold on. Let me put this over here so I can see what you're saying. Yeah, there's towns that straddle the border directly. So Reynosa and McAllen are really one city. People don't like to talk about it that way, but it is. Matamoros and Brownsville are one city. So yeah, a lot of people don't know that. So when the wall was built, it was actually a real problem because there's property lines that of houses that the property line is both on the Mexican side and on the American side. So that's a real problem for people who live down here because they have property on both sides of the border. So you have a government wall going directly through someone's property. So when I say that one of the big problems with the lack of immigration is that you'll have immigration control, I should say, is that I have had friends who are swimming in their pool, and illegal immigrants cross directly over, and it scares the shit out of them because they're on their property. You have illegal immigrants crossing when your kids and your family are over there. And by the way, the people who live in the houses are Hispanic. We're Hispanic people down here, so it's not like a racist thing. It's a hey, there's strangers who are crossing on our yard, who are desperate for whatever. Like it's scary. So yeah, so we take it very seriously down here. Anyway, let's keep going.
before it was even a state. And you can find it used absolutely everywhere when traveling around. It's on billboards, it is on cars, it is used for freeway art. I've even seen people with it on their phones. And of course, America's team over there in Dallas uses it for their logo. Though the last time that team won anything, YouTube nor Google even existed yet. You'll also see the Texas state flag everywhere, and small. And the other thing you'll see is the state of Texas silhouette. You'll see the state plastered all over several things and places just as much, if not more, than the Lone Star itself. Be more popular and recognizable than that of any other U.S. state. Reduce litter. It later became a part of Texas on cups and Vic's flag, but also their allegiance to the Texas state flag. Other southern states just don't have the same level of state pride that you will find in Texas. Texas is in. Is the U.S. Census Bureau correct to include it in the South? Or should it be included in the West instead? Or do we need a new official region called the Southwest? Or do you believe that Texas is Texas? Also, do you know any other ways that Texas is different from the rest of the South?
That was good. It was a bit of a boring video, but I'm very glad I watched it. Anyone who's watching this later, I am so sorry for how boring that was. Let's get back into anti apologetics, and we'll do that in 3, 2, 1, go.
Encourage everybody. Don't just watch clips. We showed you clips because you have to on these short things. Watch his whole video, watch his environmental video, and then read Megan's book and make up.
There's two guys that I was just I think their channel's called Church Split. I was just watching it. They were doing commentary on this. Although they weren't doing a live watch like I'm doing, or a watch along, or watch together. They were just commenting their opinion. But they said pretty much the same thing that I said, which is they're the people who are arguing against Gavin Ortlund are in this book are just being completely unfair. He's like the worst example, or the least worst. How can I put it? He's not a good example of what they're trying to point out as the problem. He's actually a good example of a person who just doesn't have the same opinion. So he's not the problem at all, and it's really a bad move for them to have used him as a way to build hype for the book. It was a mistake. It was a tactical error.
Up your own mind. You have a brain. You have the ability to think for yourself.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, the bigger point is not whether someone was taken out of context, although that's important if it did happen. The bigger point that nobody seems to be challenging about this book is that there has been a leftist influence on evangelical pastors, evangelical leaders, and some.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's denying the fact that there's progressive Christianity and that the winds of change are coming for Protestantism. No one's denying that. But you guys set yourselves up for a fall by denying things like science and history and math and physics. You guys made yourselves into you guys made yourselves vulnerable by being idiotic and being stubborn. And then when it turns out that your beliefs were wrong, not your religious beliefs, but your political and social science beliefs, there was egg on your face and people wanted to leave. And those who didn't want to leave Protestantism wanted to reform it, and they want to reform it in a way that you're not comfortable with. I wonder when that's happened before in history.
of it has been backed up by hard left money, i.e. George Soros and others. That is indisputable. So we can quibble over this and that, and it's important to make these clarifications, but don't lose the bigger picture. This actually is a fabulously researched book and well-written book. If you don't agree with all of it, okay, fine, make your case. But don't say I'm not going to read it because Gavin doesn't like the way that Megan has characterized what he said.
I don't understand why Frank Turek's defending this book or defending this person. It's very weird. It's a very weird thing that he's doing. I don't get it.
Watch Gavin's video for yourself and make a decision, okay? And as far as I know, Gavin's a brother in Christ. I don't have any ill will toward him at all, and I don't think anyone here does, but we may disagree on this particular issue regarding what he said and what he intimated in his video. How about, Megan, can you talk a little bit about how...
Well, then stop making a video about Gavin and make a video about the actual topic that you think is substantial. I mean, to be fair, I only saw this video because you guys are talking about Gavin Ortland. So if the goal was call out Gavin so that way there's more people who read the book, your goal succeeded. You don't have to be hypocritical about it. Just admit that that was your goal. You gaslit and singled out a big name because you knew it would sell more books.
Some people in what we call Big Eva get real nuanced about abortion, and they try and water down the pro-life message, but man, they know what the right policy is on immigration and vaccines. Is there anybody that comes to mind?
Yeah, that might be the other one of several big controversies this week since the book came out, and that was Phil Vischer, VeggieTales creator. To my shock, apparently a little bit outraged that he was included as someone I highlighted as saying we needed to have a more nuanced view of abortion.
He was misquoted, Megan, because he didn't say that. It was Larry the Cucumber that said it.
Well, all I can tell you is my jaw dropped when I saw it. He had posted like, hey, I'm in Megan Basham's book. She says I want to take a more nuanced position on abortion. And it wasn't just me. I mean, it was dozens of people sort of piling in to his responses, showing a myriad, at least half a dozen, probably more, screenshots of times he has said that Christians need to have a more nuanced position on abortion.
Well, why don't we show some of those right here? Here's Phil Vischer saying, hey, I'm in Megan Basham's new book, Shepherds for Sale. I made the introduction, My Sin. The reason I'm a leader pimping their pulpit is her claim that I started arguing for evangelicals being more nuanced about abortion. Continue. What's the next one there, Jorge? What does he say after that? Oh, it's too small. I can't even read it myself. But maybe you guys can read it. He then, in other texts throughout history, talks about abortion being a nuanced issue. So on one hand, he's complaining.
We'll show him saying that and not you assuming that that's what he means. Show the quotes.
That, Megan, you're saying that he said abortion's nuanced. And we have all this proof that that's exactly what he said. So what's he complaining about?
Well, so he was saying...
I didn't see any proof there.
That is not exactly what I said in this particular citation.
Yes, it's anti-Semitism, Lisa. The George Soros thing is anti-Semitism.
And so he's complaining about the citation, but the much bigger...
And conspiratorial thinking.
...issue is, but did you say that? Have you said that abortion should be a much more nuanced issue? Because I could have chosen any, like I said, of at least probably half a dozen, if not more, citations. So I can choose something else. That's fine. But the issue is he has said this repeatedly, and it was very strange to me to try to drill down on this little technicality while avoiding the entire point that he has argued for a more nuanced position. And by that, at one point, he had said that maybe, very early in the first trimester, there might be some wiggle room on what the position Christians could take on abortion. He has said that, suggested that perhaps on rape and incest, where the baby in the womb is not at fault for these terrible crimes. And so just generally, that is something that he has said. And then some people were saying, hey, listen, what do you think then, Phil? If you want to...
Again, this is not the worst position for someone to have. I get if you're pro-life, that's fine. But you can be pro-life and have a more, term you're using, nuanced approach. And also, if you're talking legally versus theologically, like, I mean, there's just way too much there. And by not giving people breathing room to have an opinion different than yours, you make it a black and white issue, which then loses people who would support you and wouldn't support the pro choice side. But you force them onto the pro choice side. This happens on the left all the time. There are people who are honest to goodness leftists, and because they hold one conservative viewpoint, the entire left excommunicates them and villainizes them to where the only thing left for them to do is go to the right. I don't think this is a good move on your side, Megan. And I've seen this come from Lauren Chen and a few other. I can only describe you guys as useful idiots, where you're pushing people who agree with you away because they don't fit your definition of what a classical conservative person is. Get over it. You're going to lose support because you don't like the person who's supporting you. Because you're biased, racist, homophobic, transphobic? Like what? How many phobias can you have? Just let it fucking go. If someone's on your side, they're on your side. If they're not with you, if they're not against you, they're with you. It's that simple.
Complain about the citation, that's fine. But what is your position? And then he would say, well, I don't want to get into that here on the internet. And in fact, Lila Rose of Live Action was one of the people who said, well, great, come on my podcast and let's talk about what your nuanced position is or whether you think there should be nuance. And
Isn't Lila Rose Trent Horn's buddy?
he declined that. So, I think that's the kind of thing that I see again and again with the complaint so far, is it will be something very technical, even though there is this tacit admission that, yes, I took that position. Yes, I said that thing. And it's a way to deflect from the actual ideology that these people have promoted.
Elisa, your reaction?
Well, I've been following Megan's Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, but I can see her. You can search and see her page. And when these critiques come out, I'll read the critique and then I'll go see where she's posting receipts for what she's saying is true. And it seems like it doesn't matter how much evidence she gives. There are certain people that are just absolutely not going to be convinced. And so that Phil Vischer example was one where your eyes are seeing where she is vindicated in what she is saying. And tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet, he's calling for nuance among Christians to talk about more nuanced views of abortion, and then trying to say that you actually do have a nuanced view if you think this or this. And I don't. It's hard for me to understand how people will disbelieve their own eyes, what they're actually seeing. But I do think that, of course, I expected there to be massive pushback on Megan because she's exposing people who have a lot of power and don't want to be exposed. So what it seems like, and this is sort of a tactic I've seen, and I'm not saying
Gavin Ortland is popular, but he definitely doesn't have a lot of power. I think you're just delusional.
this is of any individual person. But, when they come out with a criticism and then she defends herself and posts her receipts, they call her a victim, or they try to act like she's mentally unstable, or that she needs to repent, or that...
Well, she's kind of a jerk. And I don't know why you're defending her jerkiness. It's kind of a weird thing to defend.
People in the comments here, even though we've clarified and we've said she didn't misrepresent him to the best of our ability to show you that.
She did misrepresent him. Oh, that's what we were going to do today. We'll do it tomorrow, if I remember. I probably won't.
Still calling for Megan to repent for misrepresenting because this other person said she was misrepresenting him. That's why I think it's so important for everybody watching. Read the book for yourself. Don't just listen to this person. Don't listen to us. Go read it for yourself. Look at the receipts. See what you think.
Hey, Jorge, if you would put that tweet up from Phil Vischer again, the one you just had up there a second ago. Yes, most Christians, 70+%, see more nuance in the abortion debate than the abolitionist crowd. I pointed that out. Comparing that crowd's nuance on other innocent deaths versus abortion is an interesting conversation. No, there's another one you had up there.
The rape incest one.
Yeah, the rape incest one. That's not that one. It's the one you had, but that's another example. Here it is. Most Christians believe abortion is justified under certain circumstances. Life of mother, I think he means, or rape and incest, for example. Most Christians have nuanced positions. That's irrelevant if most Christians have nuanced positions. The question is, what's the truth? What is the word of God? Thou shalt not murder, okay? The only question is, what's in a womb? And there's not a raccoon in there, okay? There's not a squirrel in there. There's a human being in there. And if you look at Luke chapter 1, the babe in Elizabeth's womb jumped for joy when Mary came into her presence with the Lord
Oh my crap! This is a 2-year-old video they're whining about. Okay, we're gonna watch just a bit of it. Just a bit of it. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa.
Is mainly focused on apologetics and theology and things like that. But in this video, I want to talk about the issue.
I mean, we gotta admit it. He looks a little
There's always
sexy.
A little bit of challenge in speaking
Christian Apologist of the Year, sexiest man alive. From 2 years ago, Gavin Norton.
to issues that touch into the realm of politics and culture, especially with how polarized our culture is, especially for me as an evangelical pastor. So I wrestle with, as I'm studying various other issues, when is it helpful to speak to something and when isn't it? I really want to retain the distinctive focus of Truth Unites, which I see as trying to be a reconstructive kind of voice. You know, people are questioning things. And
He's kind of stepped away from that recently, so.
Also trying to do Protestant apologetics, but trying to be kind of a consolidating voice, a voice of hope, kind of a regathering voice. I hope. I want that. That's the main goal. Is amidst all.
There's another video that she mentioned too that I don't even remember at this point.
Integration, trying to help people, you know, come back to basics and rebuild and so forth. On the other hand, I also think it's important not to avoid issues just because they're controversial. I'm not good at that anyway, and this issue is so important. And an atheist, both of them have reasons to care about climate change, but the Christian has maybe slightly more reason because the particular beliefs of Christianity, the particular worldview that is inculcated by the Christian gospel, is one that should naturally incline us to care about issues of stewardship and sustainability and responsible usage of resources and things like that. Capture, and I like the word capture. This is, I think, theologically how we should think about how Christians should relate to the environment. There's a sort of active role. We're not to just be passive and careless. Now, so what I want to propose is that not based on the evidence, but based on the socio-political associations of the issue. I think that is a massive problem.
I agree.
We've got to avoid that. If we are called to be people of truth, that means we shouldn't make up our minds in advance on an issue. We should study the issue. We should read books about the issue. I'll give some book recommendations at the end. Number one, it's just good to observe, first of all, that there is pretty much a scientific consensus, or very close to a scientific consensus on human-caused climate change as a very real problem. And this is, again, the appeal and just the burden I have when people are dismissive towards this. The 1956 to 1976 average. You can see it's pretty clear the planet is heating up. That's usually not where people dispute it. You can also just see the effects in terms of it's not going to be the end of the world. What I began to see the more I studied this is how interconnected and fragile everything in our environment is, so that if you make a change in one place, it has ripple effects that go out, some of which you probably can't anticipate. When there's flooding and wildfires, people die. And the scary thing is, you know, seeing the ripple effects and wondering about how all that goes out, you know, famine and things like that, that causes political problems. That can lead to war, you know. Some of the negative effects are reinforcing. So you get, you know, as the polar caps melt, less sunlight is reflected and it is, in fact, absorbed. And so people talk about this. One of them is, if I may say so, scientists don't always communicate clearly. They're not always good generalizers and popularizers. And so sometimes you ask a scientist a question and you're trying to understand it. You know, I think of Michael Scott in The Office when he asks Oscar, like, explain it to me like I'm age. And just the pocket, you've got fundamentalism and then the far left, and they're just like escalating upwards and upwards. And what if we began to see this issue as we go forward? Let's talk about this more. Let's talk about climate change more. That's, in fact, that's one tiny thing, point of here, just all. And we talk about this.
So my feeling here is that not that he said anything unchristian, it's that he used buzzwords that the more conservative right Christian, fundamentalist evangelical Christian just aren't comfortable with. I think it's the problem is that he used buzzwords, leftist buzzwords, if you will. Even though they're not really leftist buzzwords, there's conservatives who believe this stuff too. But yeah, I think that's where they got offended at him. So stupid that they. I mean, look. It's a Daily Wire, so there's a political agenda to push against acknowledging human human influence on climate change. Yeah, so like there's political stuff there. So yeah, she's writing a religious book, but it's full of political bias. So I don't think that's good at all. Okay, let's do some Dan McCullen, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Whew, I'm tired. Okay, Dan McCullen, and then we wrap it up. Nope, 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 nope. We're not doing. No, I don't want to go to the University of Phoenix. You better not fucking dox me, you piece of crap.
Is that Paul was not the author of 1st and 2nd. Consensus is that Paul was not the author of 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, also known as the pastoral epistles. Most scholars think that they were written decades after Paul's death by someone who was only pretending to be Paul. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. And when I share things like this, there are two kinds of objections that I frequently see thrown back at me. One of these is the notion that when I say academic consensus, what I'm saying is therefore true. And this is misguided for a couple of different reasons. To begin, most of the scholarship that I have published has been challenging and trying to overturn academic consensuses. If I thought they were infallible or inerrant, I wouldn't be challenging so many of them. Most scholars are engaged in trying to produce arguments that will overturn the consensus view. And this is the other reason that this is misguided. When I say this is the academic consensus, what I mean is this is the argument that at this point in time, based on the available data, has convinced the majority of scholars. And all of those things can change. And again, most scholars are engaged in trying to change those things regarding one or another research question. So no, academic consensus does not mean therefore true. It means if you are interested in understanding what arguments have convinced the most scholars, these are the arguments that have convinced the most scholars. And the second objection is frequently some kind of lengthy gish-galloping argument about all of the data that indicate the academic consensus is nonsense. And one of the reasons this is problematic is that if these arguments were so strong, they would be the consensus view. They're not. There are arguments that are considered stronger by more scholars. And so if you think an argument is better, go publish it. Go change the consensus view. Now, a lot of people recognize the argument is not going to convince the majority of scholars, so they retreat to the notion that the majority of...
Also, I'd love to publish all my ideas in the Bible. No one's interested. No one's going to go to someone without many, many degrees to even do it. And you all don't actually get recommended. You pay for your publications. You pay to be published, to remain published. So it's not like people are banging your door either to, well, maybe you now that you're an internet celebrity, but it's not as if before you set that up, people are banging down on your door to publish your ideas. Most academics have to pay to have their work published, and they have to submit it themselves to be peer review. And then the peer review group, I should say, or the magazine has to agree to publish it. And then someone has to agree to review it. And if nobody wants to, if nobody cares, you're dead in the water. So what you're saying is very unfair and very untrue. It's not as easy as that to just go write a paper and get peer reviewed and have it make sense and have people care about what you're talking about. You can have it make sense and have it be, absolutely true, and nobody cared. Nobody want to even look at what you were saying. So it's not exactly honest.
Scholars are hopelessly biased against apologists. And this is profoundly ridiculous in light of one very important observation. If you look at the spectrum of scholarship, from the dedicated critical scholars all the way down to the dedicated apologists, you're going to notice a trend as you move toward the apologetic side of that spectrum. And that trend is that more and more scholars who are publishing these arguments are employed by institutions who force them to sign statements of faith and who will fire them if they take up the position of the opposing side of the spectrum. You will find very few scholars on the critical side of the spectrum who are ever employed by institutions.
Fine. But then would you take people who are absolute believers would you take a literalist into your little dark magisterium? Would you? I don't think you would. So don't act like it's not a two-sided sword here.
Who will fire them if they take up the argument of the other side of the spectrum, at least within biblical studies. So this is not to say that there's anybody anywhere on that spectrum who is without bias. To be human is to be biased. But when it comes to who is convinced by what arguments, the notion that one side of that spectrum is just hopelessly biased against religion or the Bible or something like that is just rhetorical prophylaxis for the dogmas that prop up the arguments of the other side of that spectrum. So again, when I share the academic consensus, I'm achieving one of the main goals of my channel. That is to increase public access to the academic study of the Bible and religion. And the quickest way to do that is to share the academic consensus. And the fit for this video has been Ladies of the DCAU.
Only God can forgive you now.
No, no, no. Let's not do that.
The author of 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, also known.
In a 2009 speech given at an
No,
atheistic
that's not what I
conference,
wanted.
the late philosopher Daniel Dennett.
What's going on? Hold on. Wait a minute. Where's my other Dan McKellen video? What happened? What happened? What happened to Dan? Dan, what happened?
And I
What
have
happened,
the
Dan?
key.
Come on, let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back.
The academic.
Where's my other Dan video? Come on, Don. Okay, there we go. Phew. Close call.
And I've learned a lot, and I am in. Hello, Dan. So I've been watching you for a while now, and I've learned a lot, and I am in agreement with a lot of what you say, but some I'm not. But whatever. My question is this:
All right, let's see it.
how does the New Testament and Christianity have any validity whatsoever when it appears it really goes against everything in the Torah and the prophets?
So if having validity means there is univocality and there is real fulfillment of actual true prophecy, then none of the Bible is valid because it is characterized more by multivocality than by univocality. And
I disagree with that, and I've explained that in another video. Go watch it.
where there is agreement, it's usually just because somebody is adopting some aspect of their literary heritage because it continues to serve their needs and their interests and to make that heritage meaningful and useful to them. The majority of later generations, however, are negotiating with everything that came before and they're reinterpreting it. And what we have in the New Testament is a cross-section of a specific stream of interpretive tradition that would turn into Christianity, and it would diverge from the mainstream of Jewish tradition that would later become Rabbinic Judaism and the other variations.
Okay. I have a Globemaster Japanese knife. Supposedly from around World War II. I'm just curious how much it's worth. I just looked it up. Could be worth several $1,000s. Could be worth $100. How much is this worth? A World War II Goldmaster sword. Goldmaster knife. Authentic. How much is it worth?
On what we understand as Judaism. But those Jewish folks in the 1st century CE who would move into the tradition that would become Christianity did not interpret the Hebrew Bible in a way that wildly diverged with the tradition. That was just one of the different interpretive traditions in the 1st century CE. And when it comes to real prophecy, there are absolutely no data anywhere that indicate anything anywhere in the Bible is a real prophecy.
Never mind. It's worth $70. I got all excited. It's only worth $70. Still, very cool. Very cool.
Or fulfills a real prophecy. So that's not a real standard that really has any validity within critical scholarship. The Bible is not univocal. It is multivocal. It's a collection of texts written by people operating within specific social circumstances, negotiating between
Okay, one more time for the cheap seats. As a collection, the final revelation is book of the apocalypse. It's the reason why you close it at the apocalypse. It's because that's the final lens you're going to view it through. Everything else is going to be interpretation, but the final revelation is the book of the apocalypse. And that's how you reinterpret and relens the entire Bible. Because when it's written, the Bible doesn't know it's going to be written later. So every time a new book is written, it's recontextualizing the book before it, or whatever book's before it. So the final recontextualization is the book of Revelation, is the apocalypse of John. That's the point. That's how it's univocal. Univocal because we're using that last voice as a way to reinterpret all the previous voices, and we're synergizing all those voices into one single voice. All right, that's it for now. That's it. That's a good 45-minute extra video. Hope everybody had a great day. Hope Dan McCullen's doing okay. I hope the fact that I just blew his mind, hope he can handle it. And I love you all. Forgive everyone for everything. Have a great night. Pray for me. I need it. And I pray everything goes well for you. I love you all. Good night. And I'll film my new intro hopefully today or tomorrow. No, hopefully tomorrow. All right.